The Secret Global Reset Agreement by Preston James. VeteransToday.com. You are not allowed to know about this secret international financial reset agreement. That's why VT is covering it. It is just one more reason why the Western nations created ISIS. By now it has become clear to most VT readers that ISIS was created and trained, and is now supplied and paid by a secret coalition of nations including America, Israel, Saudi Arabia, Turkey and other smaller but real players. ISIS wounded have been taken to Israel for treatment and some picked up by American military helicopters. The current head of the Senate Military Affairs Committee, Senator John McCain, has been deeply involved in the creation of ISIS and has worked closely with a retired American general who is now in a Mideast nation functioning as the commander of ISIS. Senator McCain was propelled into the power vacuum of our current administration, marked by a president nearing the end of his term who has lost most of his military command. And most VT readers know the foreign power that Senator McCain really works for, along with almost every other member of the U.S. Congress, because of their oath to AIPAC. And we know that the purpose of ISIS has been to destabilize the Mideast, balkanize Syria and Iran and now Europe with massive immigration, but also to protect the business interests in Israel related to new massive Golan Heights oil finds and a new planned pipeline to supply oil and gas to Europe. We also know that another reason for the hiring and deployment of the mercenaries to make up ISIS is to assist NATO in isolate and weaken the Russian Republic in order to protect big oil's interests and to help maintain the economic hegemony of the West, which has been dwindling under Russian Federation growth and increasing economic and military might. All these Mideast wars and terrorism are always linked to big oil and manipulating its pricing for profits. The RKM has hoped against hope it could provoke the Russian Federation and America into a full-scale nuclear WW3, which could then put them back on top again. So far this seems it will not work. And we have now seen evidence of this new Russian military might and technological superiority. The USS Donald Cook incident in March of 2014 was an eye-opener. Putin is known to be a very intelligent and astute leader. He has the world's best electronic warfare defensive weapons systems, the best foreign intel collection system and the best economic, political and military advisors. But is he getting help from a very technologically advanced group in secret? The ship's Aegis system was shut off temporarily during a flyby by two specially equipped Su-24s. And Putin's recent complete checkmate of ISIS in Syria by deployment of advanced Russian Federation air defense systems. But there is another even more important reason for ISIS. That is to create temporary financing for the Western U.S. petrodollar sinking ship. This is based on the stolen Iraq and Syrian crude which ISIS has been trucking through Turkey and shipping a substantial amount to Israel at a big discount. These revenues along with the Afghani opium revenues have kept the large Western banks afloat. Now here is a simple fact that is hard to comprehend for most. The main reasons for all the Mideast wars starting with GHWB and proceeding to the present have been to prop up the West's failing economic system as a stopgap effort. Wars and the illegal narcotics trade is so lucrative and so important that without these dollars, the largest Wall Street banks and the whole Western private central banking system would collapse, and so would the behemoth, the American defense industry. Yes, war and drugs are all about propping up the RKM banksters' system and capturing as much wealth as possible. The RKM and the large Western bank shareholder families know their system is now doomed and they want to capture as much wealth as they can when the new world financial system is rolled out, whatever it will be, electronic or a new basket of world currencies or both. The folks that really run America, infiltrators and hijackers through the private FRS, instructed the Saudis to lower their price of oil to sanction Putin for supporting the Russian Federation's good long-term allies Syria and Iran. The select few believed that this would quickly disable the Russian Federation economically, especially when added on top of the US-led staged coup d'état in the Ukraine paid for by the US and run by Assistant Secretary of State dual citizen Zio traitor Victoria Nuland. Once again President Putin showed the presence of his superior intel collection and beat them to the punch. Not only had he prepared the Russian Federation for this move on the international chessboard, He actually prepared for it in advance as if he knew it might be coming. How interesting that soon after VT's own financial editor Mark Harris went public that the Russian Federation should respond to this lowering of the Saudi crude oil price and beat the West at their own game, the Russian Federation did exactly that. Putin never starts anything but as a master martial artist and chess player he makes the wisest, most strategic moves in defense conceivable. And the result of this chess move by Putin has been as effective as his unexpected decision to honor Assad's request for help fight the ISIS terrorists' army, a proxy army of the Western economic forces. It is almost as if Putin has had someone or something advising him that is incredibly intelligent. Add to this the very advanced defensive electronic warfare weapons systems which the Russian Federation is now manufacturing, and one begins to wonder just who or what is now assisting the Russian Federation. That subject will be explored in a future article, and it will take any reader pretty far down the rabbit hole because some of the facts we now know about it are actually very, very strange and really quite hard to fathom. No matter how the West has tried to provoke Putin and the Russian Federation into a major war with the West, so far he has craftily sidestepped it and responded wisely to the core issues one by one without being unduly provoked. The secret reset is negotiated. During the year 2013, G20 met 3 times, once in Moscow, February, and twice in D.C., April and October. The second meeting in D.C. in April was part of a meeting with the IMF and World Bank. During these meetings it is strongly suspected that an apparent secret agreement was made based on a recognition that the private Rothschild-Khazarian central fiat banking system was unsustainable. It was also recognized that the U.S. petrodollar had provided the West with a means to gain and take unfair advantage of the rest of the world. Apparently these new understandings by the G20 were based on the presence of a new and increasingly powerful group which is keeping a low profile. The exact date the secret agreement was made is believed to be in late 2013, but we do not have confirmation. A good guess is that this was discussed in these private meetings a number of times in introductory fashion before it was finally entered into. The City of London statue of the Great Draco, alleged secret god of the RKM and largest parasite of humans in history. Are the Dracos now being overpowered by another more powerful and more human-friendly entity or group? This new group that emerged and appeared on the scene at G20 with a significant presence and apparent power is different than the Rothschild-Khazarian Mafia, RKM, which has held the world captive for at least the last 300 years. This new group appears to be aligned with the Russian Federation and a sector hidden deep inside some unacknowledged special access deep black U.S. defense contractor programs. It is very hard to get information on this agreement that has been negotiated in secret because the parties involved believe that if they disclose this they will be severely sanctioned with prejudice. But it appears that this new group instructed the G20 members that the current RKM world financial system was unsustainable and the world would no longer accept it anymore or even allow it. During these meetings a plan was apparently proposed and approved to decouple oil from the US dollar and create a basket of adjusted currencies in place of the US petrodollar as the world's reserve currency. A schedule was allegedly set up for rolling out this new world financial system and displacing the RKM system piece by piece. However, despite this secret reset agreement being made, it is now being resisted by the RKM and its cutouts. This should be no surprise since these bloodline family principles have always been remarkably two-faced. Resistance to this new secret agreement is showing up with ISIS, the Ukraine as the Western RKM large banks attempt to prop themselves up as long as they can. The longer they resist the farther they will fall and take much of the West especially Europe and America down with them. The question always arises. How could such a powerful force as the RKM ever agree to give up their power and monetary hegemony around the world without a major fight using America's military forces which they hijacked right before WW1? We don't yet have the answer to that question, but it appears that this new group has substantial defensive military might which they have shared with the Russian Federation, might which surpasses American military capability even when NATO and Israel are added to it. It may be that Putin and the Russian Federation holds the main cards in the speed of the demise of the RKM system. Some with extensive knowledge of the Russian Federation's new defensive technologies believe that they have a new electronic warfare-based defensive shield which is impenetrable and would provide a victory over any nuclear attacks by the West. Conclusion: as this secret reset is rolled out, the first thing we are likely to see is imported goods rising significantly the first month, maybe even 20%, and another 20% soon after. The sky could be the limit. The standard of living in America, unless free energy is rolled out, is likely to drop to the level of Mexico over a year or two, maybe faster. As the standard of living in America then drops, the Mexican nightmare will become even more intolerable without the recycled drug dollars provided by the CIA after they get their cut and the reduced jobs for illegal immigrants. Some have predicted extreme social unrest in the urban centers of Europe and America, even perhaps the whole world, and there is an RKM effort to lock down all the major cities of the world under the anti-terror, anti-extremism plan Strong Cities, which is related to Agenda 21 and the free trade agreements. And now you know why the RKM has pushed so hard to militarize the American police and consolidate all law enforcement and intel under their master police state organization, Homeland Security, DHS. Now you know why the USG has been buying millions of rounds of ammo, AR-16s, 9mm pistols, grenade launchers, body armor and armed barriers for all of its previously unarmed groups like the Department of Education, EPA, etc. The RKM cutouts who manage things in America for the RKM are expected to try desperately to cling to power even after the RKM has been deconstructed, and they believe if they can hold on to power during and after the reset they will be home free and still in control of America. This conclusion is likely very wishful thinking, as most Americans will want serious payback once the reset occurs. The reason there has been so many illegal and legal immigrants allowed in America and now Europe is because of the side agreements that accompany this new secret reset agreement. It was agreed that new reduced borders and relaxed immigration policies would be written into all the new free trade agreements in secret clauses, and that is what has occurred. NAFTA was the first and is the reason the southern U.S. border has not been closed despite all the USG's harping about world terrorism. In fact, we know it has deeply involved in all of it with the RKM, the UK and Israel. Certainly we can now conclude that the RKM has been the world's biggest anti-human parasite. It is a very deceptive crime syndicate, the world's largest merchant of drugs, war, death, poverty and misery. It is remarkably two-faced and has lived by the big lie on all fronts. It is unlikely to go down without pulling as many tricks as possible. It never keeps its agreements and must be forced to comply. This could produce a hard landing for all of us here in America as the RKM is dislodged and eliminated from power, which itself is a monumental task because of their depth of infiltration and hijacking of America the last 100 years since they hijacked our money creation and distribution system in 1913. The question of why such a powerful new group would allow the creation of ISIS. The apparent best answer at this time is that it fits with their overall plan to break down the existing order and eliminate the RKM so that they can rebuild a whole new world economic system from the ground up. We can only hope this new power control group that is now asserting itself through the Russian Federation plans to develop helium-3, or some type of new free energy system for all, and create an end to the world's dependence on crude oil, internal combustion engines and nuclear power.